Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Project Veterans Voices. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're going to have a good veteran story for you. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? Make sure you go hit up the website. That's the Lost Art Project Veterans Voices.org. Go check us out, see what we're all about. Don't forget, we are a new nonprofit, so if there's any way you can help us out, it'd be much appreciated. Big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project out there doing amazing things. If you don't know anything about them, go check them out. Even if you do, go back and check them out and begin. I'm telling you, great organization, always doing good things. You can find them at tillvalhallaproject.com. Are you a Marine veteran? Are you missing that bond you had on active duty? Then I have a place for you. Join the only congressionally chartered Marine Corps Veteran Service Organization, the Marine Corps League. Get that brother and sisterhood back in your life. Become one of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member. All right, here we are, man. I got my special guest today. This is Adam Castillo, and a Marine veteran. I'm excited to have you here, man. How you doing, Adam?
Good, AJ. How are you doing? Thank you for having me
man.
on.
I can't complain. I get you on here, and I get to hear your story, so it's a good day.
Awesome.
Well, hey, man, let's start at the beginning, if you don't mind. Let's go back to where you grew up. Tell me a little bit about that. What was it like? And then kind of how did you get drawn into military service?
Yeah, so my family is originally from Los Angeles, and most of my greater family still lives in Los Angeles. But at a younger age, my parents moved me outside to a place called Riverside, California. So that's more Inland Empire. It's about 60 miles outside of Los Angeles. And until this day, my extended family, including my grandma, will still hold it against my parents that they did that, right? California, very small town people, more than people think, right?
Yeah.
But and in the Inland Empire, I never wanted to join the military when I was in middle school or high school. Didn't do ROTC. My plan was to go to college, and really it was around my, I would say, first year, the end of my first year, that I felt this ultimate calling to service. That I honestly felt as an American citizen, I needed to serve my country. And coming into my sophomore year, that was basically the idea planted in my head is after college, I'm going to join the military. But coming from a family that's not a military family and coming from a background where I don't have I had an uncle here and there that really did military service. So we didn't really have the resources to understand, okay, this is the branch you should join. This is the route you should join. Keep in mind, I was in college, right?
Yeah.
And so everybody I talked to, especially anybody that enlisted, oh, you got to be an officer. You have to be the officer, right? Officers have the good life. Officers are this. And so that became the plan. Okay, I'm in college anyways. I'm about halfway through my second year. Let's just get the degree and then apply to be an officer, right? Of course, it's not that easy. But really, why? Why did I make this decision that I felt like as an American, I had to have this calling towards service? And really, when I look back on that, I look at after my freshman year, I studied abroad for a summer, about 2.5 months in Paris, France.
Yeah.
And the course I was a part of was not a course to teach you French. It was a literary course and critical thinking course that was titled Americans in Paris. And what it did is it followed a lot of the Americans that had come to Paris, starting from Thomas Jefferson and our founding fathers, all the way to Ernest Hemingway in the time he lived there post-World War. And really, I remember the specific discussion we were having alongside of Thomas Jefferson's letters from Versailles back home. And these wonderful letters, we came to kind of this discussion about how Jefferson really was talking about a citizen who is willing to benefit from the benefits of the state of a new republic should be willing to give their life for said republic. And that idea just stuck in with me. And what better place to have that ingrained on you than on the grounds of Versailles when I went to go visit the same place Jefferson, Adams, Franklin walked, right? Our
Right.
great founding fathers. And so me leaving Paris, France, I mean, this was a wonderful time to be in Paris, France. This was
Hmm.
summer 2005. Lance Armstrong just was on the
Oh yeah.
Champs-Élysées after he just won the Tour de France. And so I just had this mind-opening experience through the professors that taught that class, through reading Ernest Hemingway, Movable Feasts, to reading Jefferson's letters from Versailles. And that ultimately is what inspired me. Every young man needs something to inspire them,
Hmm.
whether it be their father, whether it be a movie, whether it be a book. For me, it was this course in Jefferson's letters from Versailles. And
Very
so
nice.
that's the mindset I carried back to America with me, and spent my entire college career, the rest of my college career, knowing that I'm going to serve.
Hmm.
But how? Well, that became a different story, right?
Yeah.
So, but kind of leading back now to my decisions of why the Marine Corps and why the officer route. So obviously, I
Hmm.
told you, everybody that told me to join the military told me to go officer. This is the
Hmm.
mistake I made. One of the few mistakes I actually regret as in my lifetime, right? Is listening to others that had A, never even been in the military, and
Hmm.
B, never been an officer. They've only looked
Right.
at it from the enlisted eyes. So I did college for about 5 years because every summer I was traveling abroad or doing studies abroad. I did a year abroad in Thailand for my
Oh
fourth
wow.
year and did an internship in Hong Kong. So my sister used to joke, "Hey Adam, or what do you major in these days? Traveling." So so I had to do a fifth year, but really when I came back from Thailand and that year abroad, that's when I had to really put in the work. Okay, I'm going to be an officer. Which branch do I join?
Right.
Um, I went into the Army's office and immediately walked out. That just wasn't for me.
Hmm.
Um, the Air Force was sort of the same. It just didn't really feel like I was a fit. I didn't have, at that time, they were very heavily recruiting in terms of engineers
Oh
and
right.
specifically mechanical engineers, right? I think that was probably alongside the whole development of the drone programs
Hmm.
that dominated the military during that time. And then I went into the Navy office. And
Right.
originally I applied to be a surface warfare officer because they
Oh no
essentially have
kidding.
three routes. And they have surface warfare, JAG, and a naval aviator, right?
Hmm.
And so originally I submitted an application for the Navy, but right when I submitted it, it didn't feel right. Like, is this real? I never even been on a boat.
Hmm.
Is this really something I want to do? This doesn't really, I didn't feel that I had a connection with my
Right.
officer, recruitment officer, or as they're called. So then I take a step back. And the next day, after I just submitted my application to become a naval officer, I went
Hmm.
into the office. Everybody told me to stay away from the Marine Corps, you know.
Right.
And keep in mind, I'm Mexican American by background, right? Second
Yeah.
generation Mexican American. And the horror stories you heard growing up, oh, it's the poor Mexican boys that get drafted. They go to the Marines and they're the first to die. You got to stay away
Hmm.
from this one branch. Everybody there is crazy. They're first to fight, first to die. And so that was bred into my mind. Like,
Right.
stay away from this outfit. It's only where crazy people go.
Right.
So I walk into the Marine Corps recruitment office, and keep in mind, officer recruitment offices are vastly different from
Hmm.
enlisted recruitment. They don't need you to come. They don't need to meet quotas, right? Unlike
Right.
enlisted officers, right?
Yeah.
So when you walk into a Marine Corps officer selection office, you have the officer selection officer, the OSO, and you have his assistant, usually a gunny, right? A
Hmm.
senior gunnery
Yeah.
sergeant. I walk into this office and this guy, excuse my language, just starts coming at me, cussing at me, basically saying, "You think you can lead me? I've been in the bleeping Marine Corps. I did 3 tours in Iraq. You're some snot-nosed college kid that spent half his time traveling, and you think you can lead a Marine like me?" It was just in your face, just like coming at me, like we're on
Right.
the street or something. And I was just like, "Okay, you want to challenge me? How about I challenge you back? When and where?" He was like, "Monday morning, 6 a.m., come here for PT and we'll see what you're made of." Right.
Oh, okay.
I show up Monday And keep in mind, I wasn't in bad physical condition, but I wasn't in Marine
Yeah.
going to OCS, Officer Candidate School condition.
Right.
And after about an hour plus of PT, I was just throwing up in the parking lot of my college campus, just puking
Yeah.
my brains out. And I was just like, and he comes up to me. He was just like, "You good?" And he was like, "Yeah." And then he drives me back. And I remember he was like, "Listen, you stuck it out. I'll give you that, but you have a long way to go. And if you're willing to do this, you show up here Monday through Friday, and I will be here to help you and work with you.
Yeah.
That's all I can promise you. If you show up and do the work with me, I will make sure you're as qualified as possible to get selected into officer candidate school."
Wow.
And that's what happened. This gunnery sergeant that basically just wrecked, a 22-year-old college student,
Yeah.
you know, had the sympathy to reach out and basically, and that's leadership. That's something that I believe the Marine Corps teaches better than anybody, especially for young officers or young recruits.
Mhm.
Is like you're expected to be a leader day one. And
Right.
it was that sort of leadership that really kind of just really inspired me. And little did you know, like, so I spent the rest of my fifth year till I graduated in June 2009. I
Mhm.
didn't get selected for officer candidate school in January 2010 until around probably like October, November,
Oh, wow.
right? That
Okay.
year. So that because that's when basically the selection approvals come out. And till then, I moved back in with my parents, drove my mom every day to work because she worked at the same college campus where I
Mhm.
graduated and where the officer selections office dropped her off at work, went to go
Mhm.
PT every
Wow.
morning, Monday through Friday. And that was the process. And what came out of that was, some guy that was probably in the best shape of his life, running wise, pull up wise, borderline
Yeah.
300 PFT. And the thing about it is when you go to officer candidate school, you need to be already in shape. Like
Oh,
everybody
yeah.
there is basically a top dog, an alpha dog,
Mhm.
physical wise. And that's something that separates Marine Corps officers is they're expecting everybody to be petite. I mean, your physical fitness value or your scores plays a major part in your selection process.
Yeah.
And it's competitive. People don't understand, but how competitive it was for me to slip into that class was extremely competitive because that was at a time where, listen, the Great Recession was happening.
Mhm.
Um, I went into a lieutenant class or an officer candidate class that you had about 300 odd candidates.
Mhm.
And most of them were, a lot of them were prior enlisted, brother. A lot
Yeah.
of them were prior enlisted Mustangs. So it was competitive, it was cutthroat, and you were already behind all these prior service Marines.
Oh,
And it was
yeah.
tough. It was tough. You're one of the minority that's just coming out of college and graduating, no military experience. The only thing you can beat these older guys at is your physical fitness because they're a bit
Right.
more broken down from being enlisted, right? And so
Mhm.
you had to go there with that mindset. You know what? I'm going to be the toughest and I'm going to be the fastest. And that's something that they can't take away, right? They can't take away my
Mhm.
effort. Um, but I was ready. And, a lot of that is the thanks of my officer selection officer and his team, right? For really
Yeah.
molding
That's
me.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's testament to one is that recruiting aspect for the Marine Corps is, hey, we don't need you, that whole attitude, and then taking somebody and saying, okay, if you're willing to give the time, we're going to give you the effort and show you what we can do for you. uh you know
exactly.
that's great.
Yeah. So there I was in officer candidate school. This was January 2010.
Hmm.
And I have never seen the snowfall in my life. I'm a California kid, Southern California, born and raised. And I don't know if you remember this, but this was because, okay, let's backtrack. All officers train in Quantico, Virginia.
Right.
We don't do this Paris Island versus MCRD San Diego thing that the enlisted do, right?
Right.
Everyone goes to Quantico, Virginia, which is the DC area.
Hmm.
And in 2010, around February, there was something called Snowmageddon in the capital.
Yeah.
Is when the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
entire capital shut down. It was like a small little blizzard or something. We were out in the field And this was one of my first field exercises. And all of a sudden, I'm looking up and seeing snowfall. And that's the first time I've ever seen snowfall in my life. And I get yelled at like, Castillo, what the F are you looking at? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh God, I mean, I don't know what I'm doing, right? At this point, it's like snow's falling down. I mean, I'm getting yelled at, etc. Anyways, we go to bed because this was our first field exercise. So they still allowed us to have tents at that point.
Okay.
And I literally open up my tent and there's like a foot of snow I have to climb out of, or no, a couple feet of snow I had to climb. I'm like, what the heck? And so the Capitol was closed. Marine Corps Base Quantico is closed, but we're still training.
Yeah.
And we spent all that time just basically getting grilled in the barracks and then shoveling snow. This is the first time I've ever shoveled snow in my life, my friend. I never knew how to shovel snow. I was getting yelled at because I didn't know how to shovel snow. I'm like, I'm from California. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so we spent most of that time because, in typical Marine training, you have the parade deck, which is a big parking lot, big asphalt parking lot where we drill. Right. You do your marching, et cetera, et cetera. So from the barracks, after we just being grilled, push-ups, whatever the case, just being yelled at, just playing games, and you know what type of games they're playing, we were able to clear a path to the chow hall, which is across from this giant parade deck. And this is another hard lesson I learned from being a Californian, never being around snow. This thing that the devil has put on this earth called black ice.
Yeah.
And I never knew about black ice before. And so here we are marching to go eat, to go put substance in our bodies so we can go back and just play games and just, get grilled by our drill instructors. And literally we're carrying rifles, marching. And literally out of your peripheral vision, you just see people just start flying. It's almost like an alien snatcher film or something, right? Where aliens are just taking people like War of the Worlds, right? And then I kid you not, AJ, rifles are flying in the air, right? Because people are just eating, what? They're just eating it, legs up to the air, right? And it's probably one of the most frightening experiences I've ever had in my life, was marching across this black parade deck, knowing that what waited to me was certainly a bad tailbone bruise, right? And let me tell you something, AJ. I ate it more times than I can count, right? I mean, I came out of OCS, all my body was bruised, man, and and it's one time I ate it going down this little kind of staircase that connects to the chow hall to the parade deck, but it doesn't have stairs. It's just one of these ramps, right? You can keep marching.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I ate it going down, and my rifle slid across 10, 15 candidates. Everybody's stumbling like a pack of dominoes. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is just miserable, right? And then that's when they started playing the real games, right? Okay, now we have as much clearance as possible to go back up to the field. Now we get no tents. Now they're giving us liners for gloves, not even gloves, liners for gloves. And that's where we had to do the infamous the Quigley in Quantico, Virginia. If you've seen pictures of that, where you basically go underneath water into this tube with your rifle, and you have to come out of the other side, and there's a sergeant instructor there in case somebody freaks out, and they pull them out like forcefully so they don't drown. So we had to do that in the snow. But then I remember we had this one thing. It was I forgot. It was like a movement under fire exercise where there was water involved as well. And this was still when it was really cold and snowing. And let me tell you something, man, that was probably one of the worst feelings I've ever felt, like just knives sinking into me. And your drill instructor is just above looking at you underneath. You're underneath this barbed wire in this little creek. And it's just like, you better start moving or you're going to end up in medical. And that's all you can do. You just move. You just feel like your body's about to die and you just keep moving.
Right.
And then by the end of it, you're coming out of all this kind of like low crawling through these little, these little creeks. It just seemed like there was more water than there should have been because of the snow. And so we get out of there finally, and we run, and we have to go to we have to climb something, and then we have to go shoot like 3 shots towards some targets. We do that. Most people can't even fire their weapons. It's jammed. It's so cold. And the
Wow.
sergeant instructors are just like, who cares? Just run back. And then basically you had to get into buddy groups
Okay.
and run back to your barracks with nobody watching you, by the way. Right. You want to talk about safety
Wow.
violations? No drill instructors were with you, right? You had people like borderline passing out. We had to carry one candidate with us.
Wow.
And then we get back into the barracks and everyone's just freaking out, right? Because you have kids that dropped out, or you had kids that dropped, face planted in the shower. We had a few candidates drop out or get mentally dropped because of hypothermia.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so that's what you're going through, man. And what I tell people all the time is like, listen, you know, I have the utmost respect for special forces and the
Hmm.
SEALs and Delta and MARSOC for the Marine Corps for everything they do and for the training they had to do. But I think from that end to the lower end, like let's just say this, it's just about survival. It's not
Yeah.
at that point, it's not about okay, who's the fastest, who's the strongest. It's like who can survive this?
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people. That's the hardest part in training is you just got to survive.
Who's mentally tough enough to be able to survive whatever's thrown at you?
And to be uncomfortable for long periods of time, you
Absolutely.
know.
Yeah.
And that's really what OCS was for me. You know, it was a struggle. I was a late. It took me a while to understand what I just signed up for,
Hmm.
and it didn't help that I was alongside of a lot of senior enlisted Marines.
Hmm.
But that was also helpful because luckily I had specifically one, who's still my good friend, take me under his wing and
Yeah.
show me what's what. It's just like you have something, but you need to grow up,
Yeah.
fast, or you're gonna get kicked out, you know.
Mm.
And that's what happened. But I got through it, and yeah, I graduated, and then you know, the Marine Corps officer journey doesn't end there though. Unlike
Yeah.
other branches, we have to do something called the basic school, right? Which is
Hmm.
6 months, still in Quantico, right?
Right.
And so every second lieutenant goes there. You have a captain, you have evaluations, and that's where essentially you get your MOS selection, a la your officer, so or your job
Mm.
selection.
Makes
And
sense.
this is where the Marine Corps becomes even more miserable. Unlike the other branches, you don't get to choose your job.
Hmm.
90%, 90+% of Marine officers don't get to choose their job. You have
Wow.
something called the quality spread. And if you read my book, I kind of joke and make a parody joke about how it's like the Marine Corps' version of the Hunger Games, where the odds are never in your favor.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
basically, you get you're with this sort of sainted quality spread. Of course, the Marine Corps needs to do everything differently because we're the Marine Corps.
Right.
Um, and essentially, what they do is they divide all the spots. Let's just say infantry. There are 30 infantry spots.
Hmm.
We have a class of 300 divided into the first tier, second, third tier. First
Hmm.
100, second 100, third 100. And basically, each tier will get 10 officer or infantry officer spots. And
Right.
so if you're 11 in the top tier, you might not get it. And actually, somebody that's lower than you, 2 tiers lower than you, will get your job instead of the one you want. And you will
Right.
actually get some job you never even thought you wanted.
Hmm.
And that's really probably the hardest pill to swallow for new lieutenants is you're
Yeah.
dealing with this for a 6 month course, you're dealing with it for nearly 5 months. You're dealing with what is my MOS going to be? Unless
Hmm.
you're already there for like a judge advocate lawyer program or maybe a naval
Right.
aviator, et cetera. They already got something. But even like everyone's treated the same. Like even what a lot of people don't understand is a lot of the Naval Academy graduates also come into this class. They don't have to do OCS. They
Yeah.
come in and meet you in TBS and they're competing against you. So
Wow.
there's a lot that kind of leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. And of course, knowing my luck in the Marine Corps at that time, it left a very bitter taste in my mouth. So I wanted to be an infantry officer. I got
Okay.
to be a supply officer,
Ah.
which
Okay.
to this day, I don't know where that selection was in terms of because you get to rank, right? Number
Yeah.
one was infantry officer. I don't even know where supply was, right? The MOS designation code is 3002. I thought he said because the infantry officer code is 0302. I thought, oh, did you mistake that, sir? When my captain did, no, 3002. I'm like, what's that, sir? like, like,
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was, you know? And then he was like, oh, your supply, Castillo. Come really? Like, oh, all right.
Wow.
And immediately I went back to my barracks room where we were sharing a barracks with like 5, 6 other Marines. And they're like, what'd you get? I got supply. I'm gonna go start figuring out what I'm gonna do after the Marine Corps now, I guess. So
Oh,
and
geez. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's basically how it went. And
Wow.
needless to say, listen, I didn't really like my job, but I went to go do it anyways.
Yeah. 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 And well, that's what you got to do, no matter what, you got to figure it out and, push on. So,
And
it's
precisely.
just the way it goes. Yeah. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. Right.
Exactly. And it's not like you have much of a choice. You signed your life away too, right?
True.
So um but no, then I went out to San Diego and I was stationed at MCS Miramar, which ironically
Okay.
kind of is closely to Myanmar, where I live now, and where this whole story of finding our voice in my book kind of came up. But so this is the place, the air station where they filmed Top Gun, and
Hmm.
it's now a Marine Corps air station. And essentially, I was a supply officer there, but I did everything possible to get out of it.
Hmm.
Everything possible, right? I took every extra billet as possible, right? Oh, I'm gonna go learn how to do kind of this range school where you draw all the STOs, or basically the ricochet radiuses, so you actually can do the math behind putting together a range.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Um, and
Okay.
so I did that. I was basically doing the martial arts program the Marine Corps has religiously.
Hmm.
I went to the martial arts instructor course, etc. Did
Oh,
anything I
wow.
could to
Yeah.
get away from supply. And luckily, that was still a time during the global war on terror where there was a lot of flexibility in
Hmm.
terms of doing things that were not necessarily your job.
Right. Yeah.
So in essence, that led me to taking, let's just say, this impromptu sort of deployment to Afghanistan to basically be an enabling team, a logistical enabling team, to support a Marine Corps training team that was training and advising a Georgian rifle battalion from the country of Georgia.
Okay.
Right. So they were integrated with them, training them in Georgia. But they needed a team of Marines, a very like hodgepodge group of comm Marines, logistical supply, maintenance,
Hmm.
food and beverage, these sorts of things, right? And so basically, I was the one that was tagged to, hey, you're going to go be the officer that leads this enabling team, right?
Okay.
And it was a very interesting deployment, probably one of these deployments where you just pick things up that, you weren't asked to do it, but you just did it,
Right.
right? So when I arrived in Afghanistan, I just began working. And yeah, I was
Hmm.
the supply officer, I was the maintenance officer, I was the logistics officer, I was a camp commandant on my
You
outpost. I was out,
did it
yeah, so
all.
I was out in an outpost, yeah, in Musa Kala, Afghanistan. And really, it was just while they were training the Georgians, and sometimes the Georgians couldn't do very basic things, specifically convoys for subsistence and ammo. Okay, you didn't bring water
Mhm.
and ammo to this outpost or this patrol base. It's kind of a mess up. And it just got
Yeah.
to the point where it's like, listen, I'm not on the training team, right? I'm not on the training team. I'm
Yeah.
here to enable. So I'm just going to go do your job for you since you're so incompetent. How about that, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I did like 30 plus, convoys basically outside the wire. Never lost a Marine, thank God,
Yeah.
but yeah, we just lived outside the wire, just moving things from point A to B. I had engineers with me, fixing
Hmm.
generators, just getting every outpost and patrol base to be operational ready. We always talk about that in the military, right? Operational
Hmm.
readiness. I
Right.
needed to have the combat readiness of this entire unit ready to go. And that's basically what I did. And so like somewhere like the actual training team, like between grunts and other Marines,
Hmm.
they're like, you know what, Castillo, for as much as you complain about supply, you are probably outside the wire way more than any of us, doing your mythical wall-to-wall inventory. Um, And they weren't wrong, because I knew what was waiting for me back in my 10. It was like,
Yeah.
3 to 4 hours of like maintenance requests and supply work and these
Hmm.
things that are just boring, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, that was my war, and all wars come to an end, and
Yeah.
that basically, when I came home, I had already basically signed up to be a reservist, right? I was not trying to be a
Okay.
career active duty Marine, especially once they made me an officer or a supply officer.
Right.
So I already knew I was going into the reserve. So
Okay.
listen, I was already talking to manpower. I was like, listen, like the deployments for the Marine Corps are probably going to end in a year to
Hmm.
Afghanistan. Right. I mean, I was part of
Yeah.
the last Marine Corps led offensive in Helmand Province in 2012.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I believe we handed back Helmand to the Taliban right around 2014. Right.
Yeah. I think so.
So yeah, so the writing was all on the wall. The Marine Corps was already going back to like, oh, hey, we're doing Charlie Fridays where you have to wear a service uniform
Hmm.
instead of your camis. Like this was going back to the 1990s Marine Corps. And I was like, you know what? They're gonna make me be a supply officer now. I'm done. I'm going to the reserves
Yeah.
anyways. I'm gonna basically, go build a life. Go
Yeah.
get married in LA or something or San Diego and get what I felt was owed to me. And so I transitioned to the reserves fully, doing the
Hmm.
1 weekend out of the month, 2 weeks a year. But what I didn't realize is when you don't have a job lined up, they'll
Hmm.
call you in to do work. They're like, oh, we have these orders, we have these number of days for extra for you to do. Like, just come in for like. So I was like, still going in like 1 or 2 weeks out of each month because I knew I didn't have a
Oh
job,
wow.
right?
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? No, because the money, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and so what that led to was, this very dark period of my life where,
Hmm.
I had just served in Afghanistan and I thought I was an officer,
Hmm.
AJ, with a very technical skill. It's not like I was a grunt or something, right?
Right.
I
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
something that's very applicable to
Yeah.
transition to civil war. And I
Right.
couldn't get a job. I
Hmm.
couldn't get a job anywhere. You're talking about 20 plus interviews that I either drove out or was flown out to, and it all kind of ended the same. Like, listen, thank you, but no thanks. Right.
Right.
Um, kind of being a businessman now, looking back on that, from what I feel like during that time, we knew the war was ending. There was this whole, okay, there's a lot of or veterans now entering the veteran pool. There's this whole
Hmm.
corporate sort of, thank you for your service, hire veterans. But
Hmm.
Walmart and the Amazon types, man, they were just looking for people to work in warehouses or aisles, right?
Yeah.
They weren't looking
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
managers. And so I felt like when I was going to a lot of these companies, okay, we actually want you to be middle management material. We'll fly you out to this place or that place. And so I used to get flown out, stayed in a hotel, wined and dine. But at the end of the day, it just seemed like I was a checkbox. Hey, we interviewed a veteran. Boom,
Oh, right.
wipe our
Yeah.
hands clean. Because like looking
Wow.
back on it, like at the business
Yeah.
side of me, knowing how multinationals work, knowing how corporations work now, they probably already had somebody internally or somebody at their competitor that they already had earmarked for this job. Like, why would
Right.
they hire somebody, from the military that they don't even know? So
Hmm.
honestly, that's what happened. And that was a very dark period for me where, I don't know if you talk about a lot about this on this show, but veteran depression, veteran
Oh yeah.
suicide, but you know, I
It's
felt
real.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like I was on the cusp of like, one or two bad decisions away
Hmm.
from, my life being on a completely different trajectory.
Right.
Going to the bottle, going to drugs.
Hmm.
But I think luckily for me instead, I got angry. I got
Mm.
really, really angry at the world. And that fury kind of led me to sort of an ingenious idea at the time to reach out to my old contacts that I developed while I was studying abroad in Thailand for a year, like I said
Hmm.
earlier. And this sort of led to one of my old friends saying, hey, you should kind of move out here and there's a lot more opportunity for you in the region here for people our age. And that led me to basically being introduced to my former business partner who was starting a company in Miramar. And he said, hey, listen, like I'm doing this real estate stuff in Yangon, Myanmar, right? And I want to also do kind of a tail off security company, and I
Okay.
need somebody to help build it for me, you know? And I'm like, all right, let's just go do it then. And
Yeah.
so I moved to Asia or Thailand in August 2013.
Hmm.
And I started going to Myanmar probably November 2013. And
Okay.
I officially moved to Yangon, Myanmar, January 5th, 2014. I packed
Hmm.
my bags in my condo in Bangkok and headed over to Yangon. And I've been there ever since, building a business.
Wow.
Um, but a lot of that process, I kind of what I was dealing with mentally and how I did that. If
Hmm.
anybody listening to this wants to know more, it's in the prologue of my book. So
Well, real quick, what's the name of your book? I know we're going to get to it in a little while, but what's the full name of your book?
yeah, it's called Finding Our Voice, a story of leadership in crisis and the American spirit abroad. Basically, it's available now on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, anywhere where you buy books. It's now fully available. We already reached Amazon bestseller in a couple of days in 2 different categories.
Wow.
So we have a lot of momentum right now, and I'm very proud of it. I just did the launch in Washington, D.C. This
Hmm.
past week. I'm currently in New York doing a couple other kind of talks, small events. Yeah, so it's live, and please go buy it and support.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We'll get into that a little bit later, I'm sure. But yeah, all right. I'm sorry. I just want to do a quick plug since you mentioned it
No,
there.
no, no worries, no worries. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think you know the skills I was able to learn in the military. A lot of those were applicable to building a business, specifically in a very complex environment where there's not a lot of support. So it essentially reminded me of my deployment in Afghanistan,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Adapt, improvise, overcome, right?
Mhm.
Do more with less. And that's essentially how I built my company. And that's essentially how it became a success. Now, kind of like going back more or less to how I see my military career,
Mhm.
because something I will say is everyone has a round two, in my opinion, once they leave the military.
Mhm.
I did my round two again in the reserves around 2018 for about a year and a half, where
Okay.
I was doing reserve duty out of Okinawa, Japan, 3 meth. And I was basically doing a lot of the training exercises we do with our Korean brethren in
Mhm.
terms of the North Korea exercises, etc.
Right.
And basically, I spent a year mostly not just in Okinawa, but in training embedded with the Korean Marine Corps
Okay.
and working in their commanding operations center, night shift, the fore desk, and really kind of being on the general staff, right? The general comes in the morning, he gets briefed by me on all things logistics, what's happened in the night. Um, and really, I quite enjoyed that. But like everything in the Marine Corps, we're very stringent on our ways, right? So no, every 3 years you need to move for no reason, just
Mhm.
because we say so. And I'm kind of seeing that like now they're trying to put more flexibility
Mhm.
into certain things around the Marine Corps so people
Right.
stay. But at that time, they was still nope. You need if you're going to stay in the reserves, you need to go back and drill at a drilling unit in America. I'm like, guys, I live in Asia. That's not going to work, right? I'm not going to
Yeah.
fly back every month. Just insane, right?
Right.
So around COVID time, anyways, I was supposed to go out for one like another exercise or two in Korea. Those got canceled because of COVID.
Mhm.
And then that's when I just dropped papers and basically like because at the end of the day, they were like, listen, you're because of your time of service, even though you weren't active for many years, you
Mhm.
still need to be a major at this point. Right. So
Right.
you
Yeah.
either submit to become a major or you just, we drop papers and dishonorably or honorably discharge and resign your commission. And so I
Mhm.
chose the latter and just said, you know what, I'm done. Right.
Yeah.
I'm that's enough playing for me. But I think ultimately, kind of looking back on my career in a snapshot, what did I want to do, AJ, in terms of serve my country, do the
Mhm.
job what I wanted. I wanted to be an infantry officer. I wanted to serve my country. I wanted to be part of service to this great republic. I
Right.
should have just enlisted out of high school and done what
Mhm.
I wanted to do, signed up for the job I wanted, yeah, it would have been a lot tougher. But hey, that going through OCS and all that was not easy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
Very
takes
true.
a lot of people that go from enlisted to officer don't realize how hard it is physically.
Hmm.
And I saw it firsthand. A lot of these guys, they had some miles on their tires, right?
Hmm.
They barely survived some of these courses, right? Compared,
Yeah.
that's where I was able to elevate myself over them, right?
Hmm.
Because physically I was young. Um, but what they don't teach you about being an officer, specifically in training,
Hmm.
is how we're basically trained to kind of tear each other down, right? There's not
Mm.
that camaraderie you have in the enlisted training where it's one team, one fight. Everybody,
Right.
you do things like peer evals, not in
Yeah.
just in OCS, you do it in TBS. So like you're having 10 months nearly of peer evals where you're ranking all the members of your platoon by one to last, right? And then you have to give
Yes.
reasons why. And so you
Mm.
have things coming up on your we coined them spear evals because we're always spearing our peers, right?
Hmm.
The pettiest stuff starts coming out. And so, when a lot of enlisted tell me about how like they complain the way officers are,
Hmm.
in the Marines. And I heard it for my years in the Marine Corps. Why are
Yeah.
officers like this? Why are they more interested in their own career instead of taking care of the men, taking care of the Marines like they're
Hmm.
supposed to? Well, this is why.
Yeah.
We're taught to eat each other to get ahead,
Yeah.
literally. And that I feel was what I wasn't prepared and what's not on the pamphlet,
Right. Oh yeah. Sure.
and this is why I tell people never listen to an enlisted Marine about being an officer or
Yeah.
somebody that hasn't been in the Marine Corps or been in the
Hmm.
military. And the second thing I would say why I think that one of the few mistakes, if the only mistake I made, was not enlisting instead of going officer. I don't think people realize, especially enlisted, how much you don't get to do your job you were trained to do, specifically after your lieutenant years. After your first 2 to 3 years, you're basically a captain at that point. You
Right.
should be a company commander. At that point, you're not doing anything with the Marines. You're doing paperwork, you're
Yeah.
doing a lot of administrational duty, you're doing a lot of planning. And then once you hit major, it just starts all over. You become the lieutenant of the field grade officer ranks, right?
Right. Yeah.
And you're basically in an office now, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so that is ultimately the biggest burden I think that officers really have to take on is like, Marine officers, they join thinking they're going to be Chesty Puller on Guadalcanal. Well, they end up basically 90% of their work is paperwork in the office.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get to
Yeah.
see your Marines maybe once a week at a libo brief, when you just, and why is that, right? Because if you get a Marine that has a DUI, well, guess what? Guess how much paperwork and scoldings you're going to get from your commanding officer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Very
it's
true.
it's not as glamorous as many enlisted service members think because they look at, okay, well, they get to live off base, they get to get
Hmm.
a stipend. Okay, that's fine and grandy, but you're going to be alone. You're going to have no
Yeah.
camaraderie. And anytime you come out, you have to be a completely different person. You have to set the example. You have to have the command
Hmm.
presence.
That's
There's
true. Yeah.
expectations to be an officer. And I don't really think that many enlisted really understand that because you can't put a price on that camaraderie, in my opinion,
Hmm.
that those enlisted, not just Marines, but any service member have. You know,
Yeah.
some of the greatest times I have, and some even till today, I took out the MSG, the Marine Security Guard
Hmm.
unit at the embassy in Yangon in Myanmar. I took them out for a night of drinks and dinner because they had a Marine Corps ball this past November, and I was the oldest Marine in town,
Oh,
right? And
oh,
so at
okay.
39, but I
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
it's Yangon, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that was not a good feeling, but whatever. But long story short is the conversations they were having, that camaraderie they have.
Yeah.
One of or two of them were thinking about going officer, going Mustang. I'm just like, you're gonna lose that if you leave. You do
Hmm.
realize that. Like you're never going to get that back.
Yeah.
And that's my whole spiel on why I always regretted being an officer instead of enlisted, because, I wanted to fight alongside brothers. I can name one person, maybe two, that I still have a good relationship, that I actually consider a close friend and brother from my officer class, right?
Yeah.
That's it, right? It's not like,
Wow.
in fact, I probably have a closer relationship with enlisted Marines that I served with or served in Afghanistan with
Hmm.
than most officers.
Yeah. But that is an interesting take that I never really thought about too. Is how is starting out at OCS and everything, how you're almost pitted against one another in that competition aspect, and how that carries over into the daily interactions of officers. Later down the road. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, when you get out to the operating fleet, your lieutenants, I can't really speak for the other branches, but it's sort of like sink or swim in the Marine Corps. Like
Yeah.
you get only maybe an opportunity, maybe two, to
Hmm.
really prove that you're capable. If not, well, I mean, you have a target on your back.
Hmm.
Everybody is going after the second lieutenant.
Yeah.
So you have, first of all, people that are competent. I think most officers, once they come into the operating fleet, they should have confidence, especially in the Marine Corps. But I
Hmm.
think where the bad blood comes between enlisted and officer, especially younger officers, is when they see that they're not about taking care of the Marines and taking care of
Hmm.
their career.
Yeah.
And that is probably the biggest commonality in terms of what I see in terms of officer failures,
Hmm.
at that lieutenant company grade link, is it needs to be about the Marines. The problem with that is, as a young lieutenant, you're going to get a lot of pressure from higher ranking officers. This is what we need to do. This is coming from this is coming from the brass, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but my Marines are dealing with this. A good officer will stand up and die on that hill. Hey, I'm about my
Mhm.
Marines first, even if that means me getting chewed out and say, hey, you got to do it anyways. At least the Marines know I tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
going to probably hurt your career and your fitness evaluation from your
Hmm.
CEO down the road. The problem is, as young officers, they think like that, right?
Hmm.
This is their career, and rightfully so. It's a human thing to think about. Hey, I have a wife, I have a kids now. But the problem is that's not what it's about when you're selected and commissioned to lead Marines as a Marine officer, right? And
Right.
I think that's really that's where it becomes tough between enlisted and officer.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I could definitely see that for sure. That's very interesting. Wow. It puts things in perspective. I never really thought about all that hard. But that it explains a lot. It really does. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
interesting.
but anyways, I mean, listen, nonetheless, I served alongside a lot of great officers as well.
Mhm.
And then some of my best mentors were officers while I was in the Marines. But I also learned from some of the best enlisted Marines as well in
Mhm.
terms of how to be an officer and what to look out for.
Yeah.
And I consider, as a young officer, probably some of the best mentors I had were senior enlisted,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That basically say, hey, sir, let me come talk to you for a second, right? And you just go in their
Mhm.
office and they just talk to you like a regular person, no sirs, no nothing, just basically like, you don't need to prove anything. You just need to do this,
Yeah.
right? And I think a good young officer listens to that advice. A bad one basically says, "Oh, know your role, Gunny. You address me as sir." Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's where you have like the ego, right, coming in, and I was top of my class. I did all this, blah blah blah. I'm not saying like people that are top of their class at OCS or TBS are like this. I'm just saying there is a bit of an ego that comes with some of your
Right.
younger officers, right?
Yeah. It
Um,
happens. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Wow.
So
So when you were transitioning out and now you've kind of started your business, you're doing your own thing. Uh what were the things that really helped you in that transition and doing all that type of stuff and starting your own business?
Well, I did it a very messy way, AJ, if I'm being
Okay.
frank, right? I mean, me jumping on a plane to Asia and then jumping, like living in Bangkok and for what it was, 6 months I was living in Bangkok before I
Hmm.
officially moved to Yangon, Myanmar, which is a country at that time that just had opened up after being, under military, rule for generations. You
Yeah.
know, Nothing prepares you for that, and basically having a couple grand in your pocket and living on your newly minted business partner's couch for a couple months, just
Hmm.
trying to build and work. What you rely on is what you learned in the Marines, what you learned in training, and what you learned with the real life experiences you had. And again, I go
Right.
back to my deployment. You had to do more with less. People are relying on you.
Hmm.
That's the burden of leadership, in my opinion. I always said that one of the best quotes that was given to me while I was a candidate in OCS was from this sergeant that had, deployed more times than I had a job um, at that point.
Yeah.
And he coined this phrase, is like, leadership is sacrifice, and
Hmm.
that has stayed with me since that moment. Like, that is what leadership is. And so when I first came to Yangon, uh, that's what I focused on: people. Like, I'm going to
Right.
train one person and give this person everything, and
Hmm.
then I'm going to train two people, and then three and four and five, and that's ultimately what helped me the most, is having these tough lessons ingrained into me,
Hmm.
through not just training, but through Afghanistan, and then coming home and also kind of looking at people and saying, you know what, I don't really care about qualifications or
Hmm.
education or things like that. I know what it's like to just want a chance, because I was going
Right.
through it just before I left America. And so I
Hmm.
looked for people that were hungry, young people that were around my age or younger, that really just wanted a chance in life. I mean, here you
Hmm.
have this country coming out of generations of military dictatorship,
Right.
and these people just they just want a chance. And
Hmm.
so ultimately, that's what I relied on, and that's what I looked for, and that's where I was able to build my success from.
Hmm. Wow. I like that. I like that a lot. And now, and how long have you been? How long have you been doing the business and that type of stuff already?
Yeah, so 12 years. I
12.
think it's approaching, going to be 12 and a half soon. So
Wow.
End of November, early December is basically my 13-year kind of mark.
Wow.
But um, I mean, listen, it's been a long ride in there, and but I think I'm ready to come home now.
Yeah.
Not necessarily full time yet, but I do want to start planting more roots in the United States again, because at the end of the day, I believe when I went to that country, for as much as I've done to help the people there, I needed them as much as they needed me, you
Mm.
know,
That's
and
a good point.
I was a very angry person, that darkness that followed me from being an unemployed veteran that just had doors shut in his face, right?
Hmm.
One or two decisions away from living in the street. I was able to unleash that amongst the people that were willing to accept it. And I built
Hmm.
myself out of nothing. You know, AJ, I went into that country drowned in student debt. I by
Hmm.
the time I started paying off my student debt from all the deferrals, from getting two master's degrees online just so I can keep working on my business, and I got paid by the GI Bill and was able to
Hmm.
defer my student loans. The interest on those loans were ridiculous. I was over 130K in debt
Wow.
by the time I was able to start paying myself, 130K in debt.
Mm.
So, but because of this country, because of my work there collectively with the people that became my
Hmm.
community, became my tribe, I was able to pay that off, and now I'm basically debt free and have a lot of ability and opportunity to
Right.
do what I want to do now. And you know, I think at this point, I've done enough to try to help that country and help
Hmm.
my community there. There's nothing left for me to teach. There's nothing left for
Yeah.
me to pass on. Ultimately, kind of like what I was taught in Afghan, An Afghan problem is an Afghan solution. That was kind of the
Mm,
phrase of our counterinsurgency doctrine. I
yeah,
always felt a Myanmar problem needs a Myanmar solution.
yeah,
And
yeah,
ultimately, there's only so much I can do because at the end of the day, I'm just a tourist there, AJ.
hmm
They
yeah,
have to figure out their own problems in future. And ultimately, AJ, I want to come home and help my people,
yeah.
people of my community.
Hmm.
And I believe I'm in a better place to do that now. And we'll see what the future holds, but this is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, yeah. Now, part of that coming back and helping your community is kind of what you did with your book, right? And that's going to be helping the community. Obviously, doing very well already. I don't know if you want to jump into that now or
Yeah.
totally up to
Yeah.
you.
I mean, so, yeah. So the book, let's first talk about the title, Finding Our Voice, right? Some
Hmm.
people might think it's a cliche, corny title. Finding Our Voice isn't necessarily something that is cliche. What it means is I led a broken people, a forgotten people, and an
Hmm.
isolated country that's been sanctioned and forgot about by the US and the West, right?
Hmm.
It's lived in a black hole for generations and is now back in that black hole. When I first started leading my community, the American business community, the thing I noticed the most was not politics, not the war, not the economy, not anything other than I was leading to people that had become ashamed of themselves
Mm,
because they were from this country.
yeah.
That they would use everything that's wrong in their life with a simple line because of my country's situation. You
Mm,
heard that constantly over the years since
yeah.
the coup d'etat on February 1st, 2021, and since the war has escalated. So when I took the reins of this community, this American business community, which is made mostly up of locals, there's not many American citizens there left, let alone
Hmm.
American businesses. What I wanted to make my community is a safe haven. First, for free speech, so they could talk about the issues they're facing as businesses, economics, the foreign policies
Right.
that's crippling the country. Fine, this is a safe haven where you can talk about those things freely, and I will be
Hmm.
your voice. I will stand up to the fires of adversity, of shaming, of people telling me, no, you just got to shut up and you're not allowed to have opinion about this. So
Right.
I spoke for them when they didn't have a voice
Hmm.
until that voice, which was developed by them and their issues, every policy paper I wrote came from their inputs,
Mm,
them speaking freely about the problems they're facing. And also, here's the potential solutions.
right.
And then that voice, in my opinion, became not just the voice of me, the leader, the voice of a president of a chamber or the voice of a leader, but it became a voice of a community, a
Hmm.
voice of one people. And that's ultimately what finding our voice is. It's when a community they long forgotten about themselves and became ashamed of where they came from stood up and said, we believe in ourselves again. And we're going to
Hmm.
use Adam as our voice. And so that's finding our voice in a nutshell. So that's the title. Um,
Okay.
and really it's a story of how I led and how I led through giving speeches.
Hmm.
So one of the thing about community, I've always felt sometimes we think too broad about organizations, about our lives. At the end of the day, I feel humanity is very tribal.
Hmm.
And those tribes represent communities and people. So, in order to bring a community together, what do you need? You need to have a town hall. You need to have a town square where somebody just gets up and tells everybody, here's where we are, and this is where we need to go next.
Right.
And that's essentially how I use speeches to push our community to not just getting awards, accreditations, starting philanthropy or philanthropy funds. Whatever we did, all of it came down to a purpose. Get everybody involved, get everybody committed to the community, get everybody committed to the tribe, and see how we can come together in this time of great need. And that's ultimately what I felt we were able to do. And so these speeches kind of marked these moments in time where we had milestones we were trying to achieve, et cetera, et cetera. So there were 12 speeches in my 2+ years of being president of the American Chamber, leading this
Hmm.
American business community in exile. And those 12 speeches represent the 12 chapters in the book. But
Okay.
in between that, there is one prologue, which talks about my life, how I came to the country, this faraway land called Myanmar, to really the time I left the Marine Corps, went through this very bad phase. So if more people are interested in my story, it's in the prologue of my book. And then I also have 3 interlude chapters where I talk about foreign policy, where I talk about the miracles of belief in my life. I honestly believe God has saved me 2 times in my life through miracles. So that's one chapter. And then there's an interlude chapter about the earthquake that happened in Myanmar last year on March 28th, 2005 or 2025. And then there's an epilogue. So in total, there's 17 chapters, but it's a quick read in my opinion. It's just under 300 pages, but people say it's a quick read. I'm getting some good feedback on that note.
Okay. Very nice. Well, I mean, it's got a lot of cool things. I can't wait to see it. So I'm gonna have to go check it out, and I'm assuming you can download it and stuff on what is it, the Apple Books, or I don't know, whatever this.
Yeah, so it's $1 right now on Amazon. So anybody for Kindle.
Oh,
so
I see. Okay.
yeah, so anybody can download it right now for $1 on Amazon. It's also available on Apple Books, Barnes and Noble, Goodreads, etc.
Yeah, it's everywhere, man. It's good.
I'm trying.
Man.
I'm trying, AJ.
Yeah. And now, how long did it take you to kind of write the book and those types of things?
Yeah, so that's like probably one of the more insane parts of my story. So I stepped down. I didn't step down, but my term finished being president of the American Chamber in Myanmar on May 30th, 2025.
Okay.
I began writing the book, first key to keypad on my laptop, June 14th, 2 weeks later, basically.
Okay.
So from first word typed to when it was released on my 40th birthday, by the way, and we talk about that in a second. It was released on March 24th. It was about 9.5 months, just under 9.5 months. I took to publish this book. And I would say, the parts that delayed me was the publishing part, was without doubt picking the book. Like, I think I wrote the manuscript. I started in June, mid-June. I was done writing my manuscript by mid-September. And that included a long trip to the US for a month where I was only able to write one or 2 chapters.
Yeah.
The book originally, my original manuscript was about 90,000 words, but it's now just under 85,000. So once I got through the editing process, we were able to trim it down and speed up certain parts. But yeah, and I would also state by the time I signed with my publisher, it was probably I know because I had my kickoff meeting like the day or 2 after Veterans Day when I was in Washington, D.C. So that's 4.5 months to publish once I actually signed, to go through the editing process, cover all these sorts of things you need to do to put forth a professional product. So it's been a very quick timeline for me. It's been very insane. One of my close staff members who is part of the book, and I put her in the acknowledgements, sent me a very kind message congratulating me. And she's like, all your sleepless nights have finally paid off. Because especially during the editorial part, I was killing myself, man. I was like in the last week before the final copy was due, in terms of like, okay, it needs to go into quality assurance now, copywriting, proofreading. In 7 days, I did 5 all-nighters. And I'm talking about writing until I could no longer keep awake.
Yeah.
So I would write all night till like 6, 7 in the morning, pass out, take a nap until about 11 or noon, wake up, do anything I could possibly do just to, if there's something I need to do for my business because it's existential to do it. Otherwise, don't bother me and just start writing again.
Holy cow.
But that's the kind of writer I am, because that's the kind of worker I am, right? When I want to do something, I want to work. And, that's something I've always prided myself. I'm a worker. And so the writing process to me was that. It's a lot of binge writing. It's like, I have this in my mind. I need to get it out now. And that's ultimately what I would tell people that want to write their own books. It's you have to first write a manuscript or it's not going to go anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? The
Yeah.
hardest part is the publishing part. The easiest part is writing the manuscript, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you can't even put one page down, then maybe it's not time that you write this book, right?
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to need to ghostwrite because I was not going to ghostwrite my story. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I, of course, yeah, so I didn't ghostwrite, but that's what people need to really just sit down and write it. And of course, it doesn't have to be my process. My process is insane to some people. Like even my publisher thinks I'm insane. They're like, oh, we have never had an author like you that just like is just is telling us we're not meeting his deadlines. We're usually telling the authors they're not meeting our deadlines.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that's
That's
the
pretty good.
process, man. Um, but yeah, so that's basically what I did in order to get this book out that fast.
Holy cow. That's amazing. I mean, that's a quick turnaround. Well, at least in my opinion. I don't know. I think it's a quick turnaround. So maybe it's not. I don't know. But
I mean,
I,
I would say what my publisher said is, somebody has written their manuscript and brought it
uh,
to them without ghostwriting and whatnot. It usually takes them 7 to 9 months to publish something. They did it in 4.5 with me because I told them, like, listen, this
wow.
isn't good enough. The reason I'm not going through traditional publishing is because they're going to make me wait like a year or two and make me jump through hoops and do all this nonsense. I was like, no, 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 no. I want to, and I just threw out this sort of date in my mind. March
Uh-huh.
24th is my birthday, and I'm now 40. I just turned 40, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
I want to basically publish my book by my 40th birthday. That is the deadline. And they're like, "Ugh, all right." And there was probably a lot of vanity there, AJ. Okay. And I
Uh-huh.
I even told them the next meeting when they said, okay, this can get done, blah, blah. I was like, well, maybe, okay, if we can't do it by then, we can push it, right? Maybe that was my vanity talking. But they're like, no, no, no. No, we've already done all the work. We're gonna do this now.
Yeah.
But
You
they
said
told
it.
me
We're
this.
doing it.
Yeah. They told me this, but you have to meet our deadlines. And
Yeah.
I just kind of nodded. I'm like, they have no idea that I'm going to terrorize them to meet my deadlines. You know what I'm saying? I'm a
Yeah, that's
terror.
great.
I'm chaos, right? And that's exactly what happened, right? I mean, and we worked over the holidays too, right? And I was just
Yeah.
like, hey, you signed up for this. I'm
Oh
working
my
on the
God.
holidays, so are you. So,
Man, those poor guys, they were like, oh no, what did we get ourselves into?
yeah, precisely. But no, I mean, listen, I had a great publishing manager. I had a great editor. And, another point I would discuss is, a lot of people that haven't written a book or that want to write a book
Hmm.
don't realize that, even some of the greatest authors in the world don't write 100% of their book, or it's not 100%
Mm,
pure their words.
yeah.
A good writer, whether it be, John Grisham, J.K. Rowling, whoever the case may be, has a great editor to rein them in or to restructure things for them where it becomes messy, right?
Yeah, that's a good
My
point. Yeah.
editor, about all her changes, I accepted maybe half of them because I didn't agree
Okay.
with the other half. But the
Yeah.
half that she changed, I basically took it to the next step. I expanded
Okay.
on those changes. It made me a better writer.
I
So,
see. Yeah.
I think the product you'll see in the book now is a very polished version.
Hmm.
The lead editor, not my editor, but her sort of boss or head editor, when he evaluated my manuscript, this guy is, really great guy, but, very fast reader. I mean, some of these people that can read books in a day or two, I mean, just insane to
I don't
me,
even
just
understand
absolutely
how people can
insane.
do that.
Yeah. So he read my book and did an evaluation. He was like, you know what, Adam, right now, this is an amazing leadership memoir because it's fresh. It's something that's outside the box. It's a risk. And I can see why
Mhm.
you didn't go to traditional publishing route. I rate it right now between an 8 and 9 out of 10. But I can help you, or one of my team members can help you bring it to a 10, maybe even an 11 out of 10. Who knows?
Yeah.
And that's what I felt what needed to happen because even when he gave me feedback, he was just like, listen, at certain points, you go too much down the rabbit hole. It's good to ground people in details, but you drown them and then throw an ocean on them on top of that. So so we need to rein you in at certain points to basically not you have a good tempo in terms of it being a quote unquote page turner. But then all of a sudden you get into certain parts and it's like you don't want the readers losing interest. So the key thing was speeding up those parts that felt like rabbit holes, but they're rabbit holes that I felt that needed to stay. And I think what came out of that book, while due to my editor's work, is something largely to be proud of. Right.
Yeah. Man. So now, is there anything else maybe that we haven't covered that maybe you want to talk about, cover down on? Maybe something that we missed?
No, I think that we've kind of hit a lot, right?
Yeah, we have. Yeah. Which is good. No, it's all great stuff too. So
no, I mean, I've enjoyed this, and listen, I mean, happy to do it again. If you want me to come on your fireside chat, we can talk about that as well. But I'm just happy. My story's out there now. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the work I was able to do alongside my amazing, publicist manager or publishing manager and editor. And I believe this is something that people are going to like to read. And there will be an audiobook. We're not recording that until the end of April, but there will be an audiobook.
The one talking, or how are you doing?
So I hired an actor after we did some auditions because I had a certain style that I wanted to do for the audiobook. So we had auditions with voice actors and I chose one. However, I'm going to do the speeches.
Oh, okay.
So the actual speeches I gave are in the 12 chapters, right? Each chapter is a speech.
Yeah.
And there's a chapter and then there's the speech at the end. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to do the speeches because I've already done them before, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. I like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, so it's an interesting take, but we'll see. I also have a very interesting book, I think. So
yeah. Well, I can't wait to dive into it and really do it. We need to do have like a leadership panel on at some point in time on one of my live fireside chats, and be able to answer questions of people that may come on or what have you. We'll have to do something like that and have you back on for sure.
All right, awesome, AJ. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you and whatnot, and just let me know when you want to do it again.
Okay, sounds good. Well, hey man, toward the end of these things, I do these rapid fire questions. If you're willing to answer some, let me pull them up here. I got to find them. All right, here we go. What is your proudest military moment?
Oh, that's easy. Getting my Marines home alive from Afghanistan.
No, that's a good one, man. Oh, it's good. It's good. All right. What's your most embarrassing military moment?
I think I told you it already. Freaking with me eating shit on that ramp, my rifle flying everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a few others, right? But I think that one was one where it's just like, oh, good thing there's no phones.
Yeah. You'll be reliving that one over and over. Yeah. All right. If you could be one military leader for a day, who would that be?
Obviously, every Marine's dream is to be somebody from our great battles in the Pacific campaign. I would love to be in the shoes of John Basilone when, not just, I mean, he has such a storied career. I remember, so not sidetrack, but when I was first stationed in San Diego, I was living in downtown San Diego in Little Italy, and there's a statue of John Basilone in Little Italy. But yeah, I think that's a toss-up between him or Chesty Puller, because every Marine wants to be Chesty Puller, especially Marine officer, right? But I would say Basilone.
Yeah, John Basilone right here.
No, there it is.
Man, the myth right there. That's a good one. All right. What is one lesson or skill that you learned that you still use today?
Leadership, without a doubt. Leadership is sacrifice. Leadership is sacrifice. That lesson, it will be ingrained into me in the rest of my life.
Yeah. That's good. All right. In the zombie apocalypse, what will be your weapon of choice, and what anthem will be playing?
What do you mean when I'm like charging in, like a Ride of the Valkyries sort of thing?
All right, yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Anthem would be easy. I think it would be Thunderstruck by
Mhm.
AC/DC. That's
Okay.
an
Yeah.
easy one. Weapon of choice, Zombie Apocalypse. Do we have a capacity on ammo? Is there unlimited ammo, or do we?
Let's say unlimited
I'm a
ammo.
logistician, right? I'm thinking like, okay, do we have enough rounds to get through the month? We can't
Yeah,
just
yeah,
be
yeah.
spraying off.
Well, let's just say that there's unlimited. You know.
Okay, so I would choose something that I could carry on myself that I have prior operational experience with. So
Okay.
I'll probably do the M249 SAW, the squad automatic weapon,
Mm,
because I used to carry that damn thing in training. And it's also compact, and you can kind of, you know, you can make some modifications to make it something that's easy to carry and easy to wield, but also automatic fire, because you're going to be dealing with hordes, right, of
that's true.
zombies.
Yeah, that's a good
So,
point, man. Yeah, I
um,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. What animal best describes your time in service?
Uh, Maybe because of my love for cats, because I'm a cat guy. I have 5 cats, but I would say like a black cat,
Okay.
right? It's just like you either love them or you hate them.
Oh, okay.
And especially amongst officers I served alongside, the officers
Uh,
I served under that I would do work for them, they loved me, but the officers around them hated me. Um, and that's kind of what that's a very good example of even today. You either like
yeah.
adore me or you just despise me, especially in Myanmar, right? Around the policy space, et cetera, in DC. You either think I'm a savior, you think I'm like the destroyer of worlds. So, but also because I feel like black cats can't be bothered sometimes, and that's what that.
Mm,
So getting back to like why I think the Marines I led love me.
uh-huh.
I have a story about that too, but I used to have this sort of I can't be bothered with you when I used to get like some major, always a major, come up to me, oh, we need you to do this. I'm like, tell it to my boss or just get the hell out of my face. You're like,
Nice.
Lieutenant, you know what you're talking. I'm like, well, you're not my boss. You don't write my fitness evaluations. You're over here giving me
Yeah,
orders, and I don't. That's not the chain of command. There's just something called the chain of command, sir. We have in the military.
yeah,
And so I just always
yeah.
have this, I can't be bothered, like a black cat, right?
Okay.
So anyways,
That's good. That's good. Okay. I like it. I like it. Knowing what you know now, would you do it all over again?
I would do it all over again, but I would enlist like I talked earlier. I would
Right.
just enlist, go straight into infantry, do what I wanted to do, served, and got out.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. Well, I always give time for words of wisdom, or anything you would have for the listeners, anything you just want to talk about that maybe we didn't cover down on, but this is your opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, life is very it's more of a smaller world than you think, you know. And the first piece of advice I'll tie into a story. So I had my big launch event that was more public the day after my birthday on the 25th.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm currently in the process of deleting my the only personal social media page I still have left online is my Instagram. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
now in the coming months and in the coming years, it will just be my author one now. But literally the day before this event, a Marine, my sergeant that was with me in Afghanistan, reached out to me saying, "Hey, are you in DC? I'm in DC. Can I get a copy of your book?" And I was like, "Well, you can just come to the event."
Yeah.
So at the day of my event, this guy walks in, and I hadn't seen him since we came home from Afghanistan.
Wow.
And here he is, telling the stories of Lieutenant Castillo and my antics with other officers when I used to tell him to F off or go F your face. Um, and how much that meant to him as an enlisted Marine, right? That he
Yeah.
prioritized his Marines over his career. And so it was very fortuitous, and like how and they say God isn't real,
Yeah.
and that's what I always tell people is what you put out there will come back to you, right? And the last piece of advice I would give, especially if you have any service members listening to this, the biggest asset you have in your life is your health. Because once you lose that, it doesn't matter how powerful you become, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you will never be able to get it back. And it starts when you're young in the Marines, learning how to eat, learning how to train your body, learning how to take care of your body. All of that matters. And that's the biggest piece of advice. Since I've turned 40, I've been getting a lot of those questions, and that's my common answer. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right, man. Well, thanks for coming on and doing this. Much appreciated. One last time, do a plug for the book, and let's get that out there.
Yeah, Finding Our Voice by Adam Castillo. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Noble. It's on Apple Books. Right now, you can buy the ebook Kindle version for $1 on Amazon. Leave a good review. Enjoy the book, and God bless everybody.
Awesome. All right. One last time. Thank you again. Much appreciated. I'll end this one the same way I end every podcast, but I always talk about veteran suicide and ways to get some help. But for everybody out there, if you're struggling, need help, anything like that, don't forget the VA does have some good resources. You can dial 988, press option 1. You can always text 838-255 or go to veteranscrisisline.net, click on that chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life loss is one too many. I care about you. I know this guy here cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, reach out to the buddies you served with, ask them how they're doing. And if they need that helping hand, please give it to them. All right. One last time. Thanks for coming on and doing this. Much appreciated. To everybody out there, stay motivated. Change your socks.
No more 22. Honor the journey and finish the fight.